the publisher went bankrupt, well, obviously we got the letter, we decided, wait a minute, what are we going to do now? Well, I guess we need to self-publish. That was another awareness shift for us.
All right, I'm here with my main man. He is a biohacker, fitness trainer. He's the founder of SystimFit. He's got a major podcast called Simply Walk the Talk, and he's also the best-selling author of this book I have right back here. It's called The Awareness Shift. I got my main man, Johsh Holland, on the show today. Josh, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, man. It's an honor to be here, and I know we've chatted about getting on a podcast, quite a while ago. I'm happy we're finally doing it, so thank you.
Yeah, man. Likewise, it's just so funny. We've been connected via social media probably for like 2 years, and we were supposed to start about 20 minutes ago, and we just couldn't stop talking. So it's really nice to just connect with you. I always say iron sharpens iron, and you're one of those guys who makes me better, and I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
So, there's a lot of similarities with some of the things we do in the biohacking space, and I'm just curious, like, how did you get started on this journey of really just health, fitness, biohacking? I know, like, a big event for me that kind of, started up for me was really just having kids 9 years ago. And that kind of, I was always into health and fitness, but that's what actually got me into biohacking and kind of going down the rabbit hole of even being more healthy. So I'm curious, like, was there a day that you realized this changed for you, or what was it?
Okay, really, really good question. That's a deep one, because I never really pinpointed. I guess if we could take a step back, I realized that this term biohacking means something different for a lot of people, and so if I could identify what that even means, then it might be easier to address my understanding as to when I started biohacking, right? And so my idea of a biohacker is someone that sort of treats themselves like a guinea pig, which, if you do trial and error, if you test something and then you vet it or whatever, then I feel like we all are biohackers, right? Because, one of the common things I've talked about before is if in your environment, if in your apartment or your home, if it's too cold and you turn up the heat, then you've adjusted or you've adapted your environment to be more comfortable for you. So in essence, that is biohacking, right? And if you've ever planted a seed, or if you've ever you've cooked food, you've altered the chemistry of this substance so that it could be easier to digest, right? So at the end of the day, we're all biohackers. And so I would say the moment we're born, we are biohackers. But I first noticed what that even means, or kind of my outlook on it, when I started listening to Dave Asprey back in the day, who's kind of regarded as the godfather of biohacking. And I kind of thought, man, he's talking about a lot of things that I'm into and about a lot of things that I do on a daily basis, which might be, getting the best quality of water, or making sure the environment, the quality of air in my apartment is optimized. And he kept throwing around this term biohacking, and I'm like, that's what it is that I'm doing, So this was, I don't know what year this was, but it was like one of the first times he was on Joe Rogan back in the day, which is also what got me into podcasting, right?
Yeah.
So
interesting. Yeah. Dude, that's so funny. I think a lot of those similarities came from me. Was listening. I was holding my kid in my arms and for 2 hours because I didn't want him to scream when he was napping. I was being a new dad. That's what I was being. And I was like, I'm a very growth mindset kind of person and always wanted to learn. And I'm like, I can't sit here for 2 hours doing nothing. What can I do? And I fell into the world of podcast. And Dave Asprey happened to be one of them. And then same like you, I was like, got inspired by it. I'm like, I could do this. And there was a lot of. I was already into natural health. And I just wanted to find, and I'm like, I'm doing all these things, and nobody does these things in my own local area. At the time, I was in San Francisco, and I felt like so many people are missing out on this, and that spurred kind of what made my launch. That's so funny.
Yeah. And to add to that, like I had the great fortune. I say great fortune because for me, I feel like it's my foundation. But I had the great fortune of being raised in martial arts. And, so my family has a martial arts business in my small town of Oklahoma. And if you've been introduced to the world of martial arts, you know that it's a different world. You know what I mean?
What
It's
did
like,
you do? What did you train in?
so my dad, he created a style called American Karate System.
Okay.
And it was one of the first iterations that I knew about that blended multiple styles, right? So he wasn't, so it was basically based on his experience, right? When he was a late teen, I think he was like 19 or 20 years old. He trained in one style. He trained in Taekwondo, and then he went on to doing Goju-Ryu and Kempo, and he started to realize that when he would go to tournaments or when he would go to other people's dojos, he realized that he kind of had to step up, in terms of the other students. And he kind of wondered, like, why is that? And also, why is it that everyone back then, this was before UFC, of course, everyone would always say, well, my style is the best, Taekwondo is the best. And he figured out ways that he could kind of poke holes in the system. And he just kind of thought, why not try to crap on one system and let's bring it all together to create the best system. And so he created American Karate System thinking that this was the best way to build something. And so I kind of used that terminology or that methodology to come up with my style of coaching, my style of fitness training, health coaching. I do everything from nowadays, because of that, I do everything from like breath work to meditation to supplementation. And it's using this, what I learned as a young kid, because I started when I was 4 years old in martial arts.
Wow.
I nowadays, I'm 41 now, and I realized that I'm kind of doing what my dad was doing, which was blending everything and to try to come up with the best approach.
Dude, that's so amazing. The more I learn about you, the more I think we're just becoming best friends. So I studied in a martial art called Kaju Kenbo when I was 18 years old. Got my black belt. Kaju Kenbo, if you know anything about it, it is a hybrid martial art. Ka stands for karate, Ju for jujitsu, judo, Ken is for kempo, and Bo is for gung fu or Chinese boxing. So that they also in 1947 credited themselves as the first American or MMA, you could say, the first mixed martial art.
Interesting.
So amazing. We'll have to share some more stories about that on another day.
Absolutely. Wow.
So, okay, we were just talking about this. You do a ton of stuff, and I do want to talk a little bit about the book as well. You got the book, you're doing your fitness training, you got SystimFit, you got the podcast. It's just, what do you not do, right? But also, you have an amazing, like you just said, coaching. You coach people one-on-one, and so if someone is coming to you, or better yet, is like who do you attract, or who do you want to see come through your doors, and what's like the best client or the best person for you?
Oh yeah, this is multifaceted, and so reel me back in if I get on a tangent because it's easy. So in regards to the book, we'll start there, and then I'll address like the prototype client, right?
Okay.
So the book, as you see it right now, and as you have it, thanks for getting
shift.
that. Yeah.
And Josh, I'm glad you're starting with the book. So let's just go there. I want to know, when I'm writing a book right now, usually when people write a book, they have a lot to say. Why did you write this book, The Awareness Shift? There had to be something in your soul saying, I got to get this information out.
Yeah. So one of the easiest answers there is that I wanted to create a resource to sort of suffice a couple points. One is I wanted people to understand a little bit more about what I do, because there was a common question I was getting all the time, and we were talking about this before we recorded, which was like, Josh, if I look at your website or if I look at your social media, you're like all over the place. You do this, you do that, but like, shouldn't you just stay in your lane? And me, by design, I say no. I think like we should, if we have interest or we have experience or we have expertise in a variety of things, I think we should promote that so people can understand the best ways to work with each other. So when I created the book, I wanted to use it as a resource for people to go, oh, I got it. Now I understand a little bit more about what you do, where you come from, why it is you speak the way you speak, how you've created all this experience. That's kind of outlined in the book. And the book basically breaks down 5 main pillars for what I do. And those 5 pillars quickly are quality awareness, quality rest and recovery, quality, that's number 2. Quality, number 3 is quality consumption. Number 4 is quality activeness, and number 5 is quality exercise. And if just listening to that, you might think, well, if you know me as a fitness trainer, you would think that number one, the most important one would probably be quality exercise. In fact, it's flipped on its head. It's actually, in the way that I think about things, if you're doing steps 1 through 4 well, then you almost don't even need quality exercise. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't exercise, but what I'm saying is that we put way too much emphasis on exercise, and in a roundabout way, I kind of think of it as like we're hiding behind the fact that we should be exercising more than we should be focusing on our awareness or our sleep or our nutrition or even just the energy around us, the environment around us. So that's kind of a lead into getting people to understand what the book is about, right?
Well, by the way, too, the first pillar that you bring up in the book is not exercise.
Exactly.
It's not movement. It's awareness. It's mindset. I love that. So,
Yeah. So if you can tap into what that's all about, then sometimes all you need is quality awareness, because that's what's going to bleed into all of the other pillars, right? And it's not that once you get beyond pillar number 1, then you can only focus on pillar number 2. It's like that quality awareness bleeds into all the other pillars, right? So it's like this trickle down effect. But what has the most impact? Like if a person asks me, well, what's one thing I should focus on? Because I'm sure you can imagine this. I get asked all the time, like if people know who I am, like if I'm in an Uber or a cab or I'm on the street and we only have 30 seconds in an elevator, whatever, someone will ask me, hey, what's 1 or 2 things I can focus on? Now I have the book, so I go read my book and focus on quality awareness. That's going to get them to ask more questions, which goes back to what I said earlier, which is anytime there's a question, there's an opportunity to educate. So now instead of me spending, however much time trying to explain it, I just say, okay, get the book. So to go back to addressing the prototype client, it's, I want to sift out, I want to trim the fat. I want to sift out the people who really want to be worked with, the people who really do want to optimize. Because I can see almost right away if someone is just like, the book is fine, your concepts are fine, but like I just want to know how to do pull-ups or a push-up, or I want to be able to run a marathon.
Just give me the hack, Josh. Just give me the hack.
Just give me the hack.
I hate that.
Right?
By the way, this is the Hack to Life podcast, but I hate that. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And it's not that I go, oh, I don't want to work with you. It's like, I know where to file you now.
Perfect. Yep.
Right? I know that, okay, with this person, all they really care about is blah, so that's what I'm going to give them if we decide to work together, right?
Yeah.
And then just kind of finalizing the whole book piece, something that most people don't even know at this point in time. I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but that book, as you see it right now, is almost like it's going to be like a collector's item, because the book, the publisher that we worked with for that book went bankrupt the day after that one was finalized.
Oh my God.
Right. So what you're going to see in the next few days, here we are right now at the beginning of December, within the next week, at most the next 2 weeks, you're going to see the updated revised version of that book, which is going to have a slightly different cover. I mean, the cover is still the same with the photo and whatnot. Thank you.
So cool.
You
look like you're in the Amazon with a bow and arrow, man. It's so neat.
Thank you. I wanted to depict this idea of having strong roots and having a strong foundation, and also that I am much smaller than what is on that photo, right? And and also I want people to know that I have a co-writer, because I myself am not a writer, nor do I profess to be a writer. So I wanted to work with someone that understood me, and Tessa Cash is my co-writer, and she was a former client of mine. And so I thought, okay, who better to work with than someone who actually knows my methodology and has experienced it from one end, but then also we wrote this whole book basically through voice note. And so when we found out that the publisher went bankrupt, well, obviously we got the letter, we decided, wait a minute, what are we going to do now? Well, I guess we need to self-publish. That was another awareness shift for us, right? Because here we are thinking, we conceived this baby, which is this book. We wrote it, we submitted it, we got it approved, we got it to publishing. It was published, and books were already flying off the shelves or out of the cart, whatever you want to say. And that's literally like giving birth to the baby. Yeah. But then the baby gets sick. Something happens. What do? Well, you got to fix the situation. So now the book, as you see it, will not be like that. It'll have the words awareness shift will be a little bit bigger. It's in yellow color. The font is a little bit different. But we also had a great opportunity to update some of the things that we didn't get a chance to put in the book in the first revision. So I look at that as like a silver lining, right? Yeah. So, you know, when and if you come across any challenges with your book, you just let me know, because we've been through it.
Yeah, I bet, man. Okay, I need an awareness shift for sure.
Yeah. So we talked about the book, and then you asked about the prototype, the ideal client, so to speak.
Yeah, and who, like, typically, I'm just curious, like, who typically comes to see you? And I mean, you're working with movie stars, that was pretty cool, and you can talk about that. But yeah, like, who typically comes to see you, and like, who's like the ideal person for you? Like, obviously, someone that wants to optimize.
Right. Yeah. So for a long period of time, for the people who don't know me, I was known as the celebrity trainer. And I worked with a handful of celebrities, namely, like one of the main ones I worked with was Madonna. And if you could imagine from there, the amount of people that she's connected to and the amount of people that would want to at least possibly speak with me about working together, it's a large network of people, right?
Yeah.
So I was fortunate to be able to get in.
By the way, how'd that come about?
Yeah, so I look at that as being in the right place at the right time with the right.
It usually always is, but let's not discount your skills and your knowledge.
Right?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if I wasn't in the right place at the right time with the right skill set and the willingness to take a risk, right? All those things came together to create this wonderful opportunity. It wasn't that it was guaranteed. Nothing was guaranteed. I had to bust my ass like becoming a dancer. I'm not a dancer, right? But like I had to become a dancer. And so like, the original opportunity, I always like to say this because I don't want to discount anyone's ability to open a door for me. But I used to work with Tracy Anderson back in the day, and she was the trainer for Madonna and Gwyneth Paltrow and a few other big names. And she was branching out from LA into New York. And when she came to New York, she was looking for dancers or trainers or hybrids, like both dancers and trainers. And there was a lady who was friends with her general manager who happened to kind of notice me playing basketball, because basketball is my thing. She noticed me playing basketball at the old Reebok Sports Club here in New York City. And one day she came up to me and she was like, "Hey, I know you don't know who I am, but I've watched you over the past few months, and I've noticed you seem like a really cool guy. I've also seen you in some, because I was doing fitness modeling and things like that. She was like, I've noticed you in a few of the magazines. I don't know your background, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to see if you'd want to take advantage of it." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What is it?" And she was like, "This lady named Tracy Anderson is looking for trainers." I didn't know who Tracy Anderson was. So at that time, I had a manager. I still have that same manager. I asked him, I said, "Hey, who's Tracy Anderson?" And he said, "Oh, she's the celebrity trainer that works with Madonna and Gwyneth Paltrow." And I said, "Oh, okay, cool. She's looking for trainers and to hire people." And I was like, well, this was right around the same time, the exact same time that I was entering into the NBA G League draft. Okay, so I play basketball at a very high level. And
I didn't know that. I mean,
yeah.
I see you shoot hoops.
Oh, yeah.
With that one reel you posted where you're like, let me see if I can miss, and you didn't. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, like I people used to call me Steph Curry back before Steph Curry was in the NBA, but I will say this, I played at a high level, and I knew that I had one more camp to go to around the same time that I was supposed to be doing this audition to become a trainer here in New York. The camp that I had of all places was in Oklahoma, which is where I'm from. Okay, I was living in New York. I did not want to kind of take a step back, as in moving back home, but I wanted to see, like, let me just go do this camp, see if I get any interest. If I don't, I know that my answer is to stay in New York and continue doing what I'm doing. I got a lot of interest. And I got to the point where I got submitted to the G League draft. And so I was faced with this decision. I got offered to work with Tracy Anderson and her company, and I got offered to get picked up in the NBA draft or the G League draft. Okay, that's an important distinction there. And I sat there and I watched the entire draft go through round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4. Nobody picked me up. The team that submitted me to the draft came back and said, listen, we wanted to see if any other teams would pick you up because you're a good player. Since they did not, we would love to have you, but we want to bring you on on a partial role. And I was like, that meant I would have had to like supplement the salary with, doing a regular job, working with young kids, doing camps and things like that. And not that I'm above that, but I just was like, you know what? I've got these great opportunities in New York right now.
Yeah.
I think not. So I didn't do that. And here we are. I went to become a trainer. I eventually, and mind you, I did not know what an audition to be a dance trainer would be like. I had no idea.
I imagine it's pretty intense.
It was intense, but it was nothing like I thought it would be. I thought like I'm going to be doing push-ups and show how well I can do my push-ups and maybe some pull-ups and some sit-ups or whatever. No, man. It was literally, there was about 20 people in this room. Most of them were like Broadway dancers, literally like Broadway dancers or ex-Broadway dancers. There was a couple guys, and of the guys, you could tell we were like the only trainers in there. There was a couple male dancers as well, but we all introduced ourselves, and it was a situation where it was like, man, it was like imposter syndrome because I wasn't a bona fide trainer. I mean, I did have like an online certification that I got, which was BS. But I wasn't a dancer and I wasn't a legit trainer.
Yeah.
So why am I in that room? And then after I showed my initiative to want to work hard, I literally learned all of those dance steps. And, at the beginning, I could see people kind of laughing because they're like, he's obviously not a dancer. But I spent so much time working with each of those different individual dancers who are good outside of the audition room. And within a week, I was able to learn all of those dances to the point where I ended up getting invited to go help Tracy train Madonna one day at her apartment. And I got asked to come in and do some dance routines. And I could overhear Tracy and Madonna kind of like laughing a little bit, kind of like, hey, bring Johsh in to see if, like he's okay as a dancer, but like, this will be funny.
Yeah.
And I ended up crushing it. I crushed it. And that's
Nice.
ultimately what led me to being picked. And I like to say this story because anyone out there that gets an opportunity of that magnitude, or just any opportunity, like go through with it with all of your heart. Because why not? Why not? Like I didn't have to spend that extra time working with those other dancers to learn it, but I did. And, it became one of the things where I ended up dancing in the Super Bowl of all people. The first football game I ever went to, NFL football game that I ever went to, was the Super Bowl, of which I was dancing on stage with Madonna at halftime. It's like, that's what this life can be if we choose to like actually do it,
I'm taken back. I'm so happy I didn't know any of that about you, and so it's just really amazing to hear. And one of the things that's just so striking about you, and one of the reasons when I followed you on Instagram, 2 years ago, is just your energy and just that abundance mindset, and there's that vibration. And I'm sure that person who spotted you playing hoops, there was something about you. And again, people say, "Oh, it's just luck." Yeah, it is luck. There's a lot of luck, but I also see that in my own life, and I'm sure in that moment, there's an energy that you were constantly just putting out into the world, and there's no reason. It's no surprise to me that attracted the right people, and that now you are where you are right now. So,
well, thank you for that, and I agree with you. I mean, sometimes it feels weird if you're not really secure with who you are. Sometimes I understand it can feel weird to accept compliments, right? But I know who I am, and I know my power. And some people would say I don't know the full extent of my power, which is okay. But I agree with you. I think that it's like when we are presented with opportunities, it's like, what do you do with that? It's like, it can be luck, or it can be, this is what I've been prepared for. I've set myself up to be in this position. So you can, if you accept it only as luck, then it's like the world is happening to you. I'd rather look at it as like, no, we're making this happen for us, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. By the way, did you ever answer the question about who's your ideal prototype client?
No, I was
because I cut you off. I had to know the Madonna story. So
no, you're
finish that up. I think
you're a great host because like me being a host as well. In the back of my head, I'm like, I gotta address the prototype client.
I'm really
right?
happy you did. Here's the thing, too. You and I both know this as hosts, and we, as humans, we love stories. And stories is what connects us. So I'm really happy that you went down that rabbit hole and just told us. So yeah, thanks. But on another note, I think people that are listening to this now and even more intrigued, how do I work with this guy, or am I the right fit? You know?
Right. Okay. So over the last, let's say, few months, I have been asked this question a lot, or I bring up this point a lot, and it wasn't until last week that I realized, oh, Josh, you got to be careful about how you put this out there, because I don't want to step on the toes of anyone that I'm already working with, or people that I have not worked with in the past. I'm not throwing any shade on anyone. What I will say is one of the people that I work with that I have to mention, he's like the prototype client, the prototypical client, and that's Roger Waters of Pink Floyd. Okay. Awesome. And the reason why I say that is because with Roger, he's got the discipline that is unmatched. I mean, there's very few people that have the discipline that he has. And that could be with fitness, that could be with music, that can be with art, with reading, with whatever he decides to put his mind to, he's going to be very disciplined at it. Right. And that doesn't mean that I don't have other very disciplined clients, but he's one of the best. Okay. Another thing that I enjoy about working with him is that he has the resources to be able to get whatever it is that might be suggested or that he thinks he might need for his optimization. Okay. And then the third point is the trust. Okay. And he trusts in me to where, and I've mentioned this before in different, scenarios, but literally, if I were to say to Roger right now, if he were to call in on three-way and I would say, hey, I'm doing a podcast, and we were just talking about your routines. I want to now add in thumb twiddling. I want you to twiddle your thumbs for 5 minutes, but at halfway point, I want you to change directions. I want you to do that because we found that this is going to benefit you greatly. This guy would do it, and then he would probably ask me how long he should do it and for how many days in a row, and then he would probably do it until I tell him not to do it. Okay? Now, that is a big responsibility for me because, I could screw him over by giving him information that is going to not benefit him, right? So it means I need to be on my shit, right? I need to be on top of everything that I'm suggesting to this person because he's malleable to the point where he gives all of his trust to me. And he literally says, "You're the coach. What do you got for me today, boss? What are we doing this week? What are we doing next week?" And I understand, I trust in him to know that he's not questioning me because he doesn't understand or he doesn't believe in what I'm telling him to do. He's questioning me so that he can be aware of what to expect. Right?
He wants to know the why. That's it. Just tell him the why so he can, and then he'll just keep doing it. Yeah.
That's it, right? Yeah. So I lay all of that out to say, anyone that I might be working with currently or that I might work with in the future, we've got to understand what are we really doing, right? The perfect client is going to be the person that believes that I might be able to help them optimize their situation. And if I personally am not the person, like if we discover that I'm not the person, then I might have the resources within my tribe of people, within my group, to be able to refer you to someone else who might be better for you. Okay. And so I can't work with everyone. So, hey, here's a group of people that I've worked with in the past that I think you might be perfect for. It's not that I don't want to work with you. It's just I either might not have the time. I might be away on tour. I might be, whatever. I might not be well versed in, I don't know, female hormones, right? But I know a lot of people who are. Right. And that's why I didn't want to limit myself to being just a fitness trainer who only works with celebrities, or a fitness trainer who only works with models. I'm not just a biohacker, right? It's like I am your guide, right? I want to guide you along this journey of eventual optimal health and wellness.
Bam. There it is. Okay. Very cool. And then just the last real kind of technical question. People that come to work with you, will they work for like 1 month, 3 months, a year? Is there any way that you like to set it up, or is it just kind of happens organically based on their goals and needs and what they want to optimize?
Beautiful question, because it looks different for every person, right? And I'm sure you understand that. It's like I have some lifers. I have a few clients that I've worked with for 12 years, a couple that I've worked with for 8 years. I imagine that I will be with Roger until, while he's on his deathbed. You know what I mean? It's like I have some lifers. But I also make sure, because I don't ever want it to be uncomfortable for anyone. I always say to people when we start working together that it's okay if, we get you to a certain point and then you carry it on by yourself. Like that means I did my job, right? So like, I don't mind working with someone if, like, let's say they come to me and they say, hey, I have a wedding coming up, or I've got a photo shoot coming up, or, I'm about to go on a trip or whatever. That's fine. That's cool. I can give you some things. But my hope would be that throughout the process of working with me, my hope would be that there would be questions that come up so that I can then educate, right? Anytime there's a question, there's an opportunity to educate. And so if we're only working out fitness-wise, your aesthetics, I might come up with a question and say, hey, I think aesthetics are great, but do you know what your BMI is? Do you know what your body mass index is? And they may say, no. Interesting. Okay. Well, when was the last time you had a full blood panel? Oh, interesting. Right. So whatever responses come from that is going to then make them ask another question. Well, why did you ask that question, Josh? Should I get a scale? Interesting. Right. And then we go down that path.
By the way, I'm the awareness shift is happening right there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now you get it. And again, I'm happy that I'm able to explain this in my, long-winded responses. I'm glad I'm able to explain this in a way that at least you get it. Right. And my hope is that the person listening or watching, my hope is that they also think to themselves, I never thought of it that way. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to give people, this is the answer. What I am trying to give people is, this is the way. This is the way, right? Like the direction. Do you want to improve? Do you want to go up? Or do you not want to improve? Do you want to go down or backwards? That's fine, right? Most people aren't going to want to go backwards, right? Most people want to get healthy. So one of the questions I like to ask a lot in my health coaching practice is, when was the last time that you felt you were at a point where you were the best in your life? That's not a yes or no question. That's not a closed answer, right? That's like that is an opportunity for them to have introspection, right? To kind of think internally back when. And I love it when people say to me, well, I've never been at that point. I've never been at a point in which I felt like I was optimized. Interesting. Right? Or a common thing I get is when I was in college. Well, and then we go, okay, so what was happening during that time? Were you partying? Were you drinking? Were you around of lots of people? Because let's not forget that we, as a nation, as a world, were shut down for a couple of years because of the pandemic, which usually means that we were quarantined. We were separated from other people, which is totally against human nature. Right? Yeah. So sometimes it might just be you're at a point in your life where you're not around people because you work too much, or you don't have a family yet and you feel like you need that. So sometimes it might be, my role might be to say, go and find your tribe. That's it. If that means moving, whatever. And then you can pay me to go, Josh, my life is better than it's ever been before. Thank you. That's it. I'll check in with you next year. Fine. That's fine with me, Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so for you, it's a buffet. It just kind of depends on what their needs are, and you can kind of optimize based on that. Dude, I want to get into SystimFit because
Okay.
I don't even understand all the stuff that you're crazy stuff that you're doing with that. So talk about a little bit about that, about what you've really developed. You've kind of birthed this out of a lot of just different all your practices really, and you birthed it into the SystimFit.
Yeah. So SystimFit, by the way, for people who are just listening or even watching as well, SystimFit is spelled SYSTIMFIT, and it's sort of a play on words. But the STIM in between those words is short for stimulus or stimulation, and most of the things that I do, it almost has like a, read between the lines or, double entendre type of meanings and things like that. But I wanted to create a company in which I could start to work with other people who are doing great things. And the stimulus is, anything that stimulates us. I mean, it's most everything stimulates us to a certain degree because we are energy beings, right? And so that was that. But at the time, I also was using stimulation because we were heavily into electrical muscle stimulation, right? And when we built the company SystimFit, I say we, my business partner and I, who's also my business manager, we built SystimFit because we wanted to be one of the first companies in America promoting electrical muscle stimulation or whole body electrical muscle stimulation. And this was back in 2015 or so. And it was very archaic back then, big machines, and you had to be connected to cables and these big suits you have to spray water on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I quickly realized that, like everything else in my life, I want to be multifaceted. I don't want to be just, I'm not going to go to SystimFit because they only do EMS and I'm not into EMS. No problem. So that's when we kind of transformed our business into like a biohacking studio, if you will.
Yeah.
And that first iteration of that was 432 House in Midtown Manhattan. And SystimFit was an entity of 432 House. And we were in Midtown Manhattan where we were having to pay $45,000 a month for rent, which is insane, okay? So clearly, and this was before the pandemic, clearly we weren't able to maintain that. It just wasn't it was just too much. We bit off way more than we could chew. So we then extracted SystimFit from 432 House and moved down to Flatiron on 18th Street and 5th Avenue with Dr. Passler. So we joined his practice, his nutrition practice, and we created the first, or not the first, but probably the second, I guess, second biohacking studio in New York, which had everything from electrical muscle stimulation to ARX to Caro Bike to what is the Vasper? We had Vaster. Yeah. We had pulse centers, PEMF, hydrogen inhalers, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yep.
Well, the pandemic happened. And so when Dr. Passler was able to get out of his lease because of the pandemic, that means we were out of a place. So I transformed everything virtually, and we ended up just kind of leasing a small studio out of Complete Body on 14th Street. So that's where we exist now. We just leased a small studio out of this large, big, huge gym on 14th Street, and I still do my virtual training. I still do all that, but now we have M-Sculpt. I don't know if you're familiar with M-Sculpt,
no.
Which is like M-Sculpt uses PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequency, with far infrared technology and or infrared technology, and they also have electrical muscle stimulation built in. And some people pay $1,000 for a 30-minute session.
Wow!
Right? For this amazing device that, like, within 4 treatments, you can really see like changes in your physiology. You can really see changes within like 4 sessions, right?
Wow.
So we're doing cool stuff like this, but I don't want people to think that that's all we do. I mean, we do everything else that I do, which is regular training. We might go outside to the park. You might focus on your movement patterns and things like that. But if you also want to get the best in the fitness technology, you can also get that from us as well.
Yeah. Talk just a little bit about the muscle stim, because I know you're very well versed in it. I am a newbie practitioner. I know you've played around with that. I'm not sure if you're a practitioner also, but I know you are.
Yeah, well, so I'm not certified with Newbie, but I am. I mean, if you do anything in the world of electrical muscle stimulation, then you understand it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
I know you played with that tech, so I know you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I've had to do multiple certifications, and that does my head in sometimes. But it is nice to kind of see how information changes and whatnot. But Newbie is essentially the same as our electrical muscle stimulation bodysuits, right? So the difference is that most whole body EMS apparatuses use AC current, right?
Yeah.
Which means that it needs to be plugged into the wall. AC current. So there's AC current and there's DC current, or alternating current versus direct current, and the body utilizes direct current. Right, or we produce direct currents, and this is what creates the synaptic firing in the brain into the muscles, and this is how everything, all these mechanisms work through direct current in our bodies. So Newbie came out with this research to say that direct current is probably the best for healing and for activation, because it's most biologically similar to our bodies, right?
Yeah.
So I thought this is interesting, because the first few whole body EMS systems I worked with were all AC current. So, the downside to that is that you could overly stimulate. You can, some people will say that you can burn yourself, which we've never had that happen. There's a lot of issues that can happen with that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create something that did not have to be plugged into the wall, that did not have to be watered down, and that did not have to be like this suit that you have to have these straps on and these big things. So that's what we created. We created a bodysuit that's one piece that goes on, that can be washed in the regular washer and dryer, and you can use your phone with it, okay? And that's what we created, and it uses DC current.
Amazing.
So the fact that you use DC current means you don't have to wet it down. Now, if you're well hydrated, it works perfect, because your body's utilizing the interstitial fluid and the hydration within the cells to activate what it needs to activate. If you're not well hydrated, then the moment you start to sweat, then it really activates it, okay? So that's that piece. I want to make sure we get that out. But for people who don't understand what this EMS stuff is all about and why is it important, is I'll give you the very basic understanding. So if we do a biceps curl, right? Let's say we're doing both arms, we're doing a biceps curl. The typical pace for that is about 1 contraction per second. So if I'm going curl 1, curl 2, curl 3, in 10 seconds, we're going to get about 10 contractions of the biceps in that 10-second period. So that's about 1 contraction per second. So in terms of frequency, that's 1 hertz. Okay, cool. With electrical muscle stimulation, if you have, whatever, no matter what device you have on, or device you use, you can alter that, you can modify that, you can improve upon that by whatever setting, whatever hertz you decide to use. So for instance, if I wanted to use, let's say, a middle of the road frequency of 55 hertz, if I use 55 hertz, then that essentially means, and I have air quotes here, that means that you're getting approximately 55 contractions per 1 second. Okay? Now, if you do that together with your contraction, you're actually doing the curls with the suit on, then you're getting voluntary and involuntary contractions. So you doing the curl by yourself is voluntary, so you're voluntarily curling yourself. But then you get the addition of the involuntary contractions from the technology. Now, the other benefit on top of that, so that usually means that you can go more intensely, so you can get more bang for your buck. Same amount of time, so the same 10 seconds, you can get, instead of 10 contractions, you can get, what would that be? 550,
Yeah,
right? It'd be 550
Yeah.
contractions in that 1 second. You just add a 0 to the 55, right?
Yeah.
So 550 contractions in that same time period. So that just means effective and efficient. And then deeper into the effectiveness is you can go like very topical on the contraction, or you can go very deep depending on what your settings are. So obviously, if you're a certified trainer like myself in EMS technology, you know what we call like the the penetration or the pulse width. The pulse width means how deep does it go. Now, on top of that, not only are you getting the contractions at your biceps, but in the same amount of time, you're also getting contractions in all your major muscle groups. So instead of just doing biceps curl, affecting that, why don't you allow your entire body to get to work? And maybe instead of just doing a biceps curl, maybe you do a front squat thruster. Maybe you do a full body complex movement pattern to get the most out of your time. And then here's the other kicker. With EMS, 20 minutes to 30 minutes is your minimum effective dose. Anything beyond 30 minutes is essentially like you're just kind of wasting your time. Doesn't mean that it's not effective or whatever, but if the goal is to break down your musculature, then what most people don't understand is exercise is actually a detrimental effect on our tissues, right? And it's what we do to recover from that gives us this physiological benefit. So with EMS, we usually say no more than 3 times a week, no more than 30 minutes per each time that you train. Why is that? So you have the most amount of time to recover from that. So EMS is like, it should be way more popular than it is right now. But the US is a little bit slow because of the FDA. So
shocking. Yeah, man. Some really cool stuff. Some really cool stuff. Yeah, sorry, you kind of deflated me there, but I use the tech. I try to use it now almost every day, and I just turned 40. You know, I know you said 41 for you, and I love it, man. It's just a way. You know, it was something that I wasn't using as much, but it's here. It's a resource that I have. I used to just do it on other people, but now I've kind of switched a lot of gears with my coaching, and so now I have the machine, and I just use it a lot on me, and it's just, why not? I'm working out safer also because I don't have to use heavier weights. I can use lower loads and still get the same like pump, if you want to call it that, or just the same resistance because of the stim, and we're doing so much more on a neurological level. I love it, and yeah. Have you
posted much about or talked much about Newbie on your show?
You know what? I had Garrett Salpeter on my show, the founder of Newbie. I talk about a lot of my stories. You won't see a lot of actual post in my feed about Newbie. Most of it's
Newbie is fantastic. Okay, and again, all ships rise with the tide, right? So people would always come to me and say, well, you know, is your stuff better than Newbie? Is Newbie better than yours? And for me, I'm like, it's EMS technology. It's amazing. It's all amazing, right? And where Newbie, I think, is far superior than our product is that it has the higher frequencies that ours can't get to because we don't plug ours in, right? And
yours are more, I'm sure, on hypertrophy and, you know, building muscle, obviously, and then also just stimulating maybe some of those areas that, like, I'm just thinking like a common thing, even for me, my glute medius, it is not activating. So I need something like that stim. It just really hacks your way into like for someone who probably has hip problems, if they can stimulate that glute med, they're probably not going to do it with all your little band, with those band clamshells. Don't get me wrong, those are great. But if you can do it with like something like your stim, that's pretty effective and amazing. Oh,
it's very effective, and to your point, it's very good, right? Like, you know, it's like I'll just wrap the piece about the differences is that when you can get a product that gets into the higher frequencies, like we're talking like, I think theirs goes up to like 1,000 on the hertz.
500 pulses per second.
Is it 500? Okay, 500. Ours goes up to 120, right? But when you get up in those higher ranges, that's those healing frequencies, right? So you can really do some great rehab with Newbie. The downside, though, is that A, you got to plug it in. B, it's less portable. C, you've got to have a bunch of those patches lying around, and you can only do certain parts of your body at once, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But again, it's a great product. You know, I know I've had it done on me. I've done it on other people. But we almost worked with the guys that are in Austin. I forget what they called their system. I think it was one of the founders of Newbie that split off. Anyway, long story short.
Nuex, I think.
Yeah, Nuex, yeah. We had talks of possibly joining forces to put their technology into our suit. We had talks, and you know, the talks kind of went away. I don't know why, but it's okay because, again, as long as people start to understand that there is something out there to help them, because, for instance, if if the average person who's ever been to physical therapy, let's say most people have back pain, right? So you go to the physical therapist, we know that you're most likely going to be put into a shape, and you're going to probably get some ultrasound done on your back. You're probably going to have a TENS unit on your back somewhere, and then they're going to put you into shapes. Now, when you're put into these shapes, as in like a plank or a side plank or a bird dog or whatever, the hope of the physical therapist is that the client is activating what they want them to activate. There's going to be a number of things that you can test to kind of show that there's activation, but you don't really know how much, how deep, how long. But when you put EMS into that same scenario, that exact same scenario, because we're not changing anything, but we're just adding in EMS, it's like night and day. It's like 1,000 times more beneficial, more effective, more efficient, because you know without a doubt that if I turn on the abdominals or I turn on the low back, I know it's activating, period.
Yep.
And then at what point have you ever had a client in a physical therapy scenario or a personal training scenario and they say, hey, can you turn down my abs? Never. Never. Right? I've never said, heard a person say like, they're doing a plank or whatever. I mean, obviously they come out of the plank because they're tired, but they never say, whoa, that's too intense on my abs. Never. Right? So this is what's beautiful about EMS. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, man, and I love the SystimFit because it's the glove. It's like that bodysuit, and just kind of to what you alluded with the newbie, there's a lot of cords and everything, and hey, pros and cons to everything, but I love that you could just, once you strap it on, you're good, and you can just, now you can do a whole 20-minute workout, and I think it's just, for most clients, and I'm sure same for you, the biggest barrier to doing any of these things is time. So if we can cut back on your time and what you're doing and the effectiveness, it's so powerful. Yes, I know we're running up on the hour, and I want to kind of wrap some things up, but God, I got so many more questions to ask you.
Bro, I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
You know what? I'm just curious. Top biohack for you, Mr. Biohacker. Is it the SystimFit, or I mean, there's so many, and I know you, but I do want to put you in a box and just limit you to like one.
Damn.
Or maybe you could just tell me, is there anything that like you're kind of playing with right now that you're really just enjoying and using a lot of? I know for me, I've been using my brain tap a lot lately, and just really been digging that, man. It's it's simple in many ways, and I know it's not neurofeedback, but I really just enjoy it, and it helps anchor me for a lot of my morning meditation and stuff. So,
yeah. Well said, bro.
That's yours, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, it's a very good question, but very difficult because.
And listen, and it's a tough question, and I want everybody to know, like, a guy like you, I already know what your true answer is because I know what mine is, and I would tell you, you don't need any of this shit. Like,
bingo.
Do you have this up in your head? Do you have this? Can you control this? Because if you can control this and get quiet, man, you have untapped potential. But just because you are, and I understand that about you, but you are, you're just a guy who I learned from you and just some of the things, and there's just so many. Like, I mean, people that are listening to this probably never even heard of SystimFit. They're like, wait, what? Yeah. So again, like, that's why I asked that question. Like, for you right now, like, what's kind of exciting for you that you're seeing or using a lot, maybe?
You're 100% right, and so maybe I'll cheat with a couple answers here. But,
sure.
So certainly, I was going to say that having the awareness of understanding that you don't need any of this is probably the biggest key. Okay. And along those lines, I would say connecting to nature, which is very broad, but something as simple as getting sunlight and grounding at the same time, right? That would probably be the number one, okay? Because there's so many things involved in that, which means you need to have your shoes off to connect to the earth, right? Which means that we don't need these crazy shoes that alter our foot mechanics and all these systems in our body, which also means that, you're not going to be sitting in a chair in nature, right? Which also addresses a number of things, right? Movement. And then if you're going to be in nature, getting the sun, chances are you're not going to be still. You're probably going to be moving. Getting the sun probably means that you're, outside at a time, it's just, there's so much in that. Now, on the technology side of it, though, the biohacking side of it, if you will, right? The biohacking technology side of it, I would say certainly at the top of the list would be EMS, electrical muscle stimulation, because I use it more than anything besides PEMF. So PEMF and electrical muscle stimulation, there's a lot of acronyms in this world, but PEMF and EMS are probably the top biohacks that I use on a lifetime basis.
Yep.
Love And then in terms of kind of less understood biohacks, right? This will be my final one.
Yeah.
Less understood biohacks would be the body stream carbon dioxide dry bath.
Wow. Okay, I've never heard of this, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, I've had, what is his name? Anders Olsen from Conscious Breathing. I've had him on my show a couple times, and his company has created the Body Stream device. And if you've seen my social media, in which I had this big blue suit on, and I had it was blowed up, like, I forget what's that cartoon, Teletubby. Like,
yes.
People commented that I looked like a Teletubby. That's because I was wearing a dry bath suit. And what that does is it's basically you're replacing the oxygen and the air inside the suit by sucking all the air out. And then you pump it full of carbon dioxide so that the body can then absorb and unbind the oxygen molecules to be able to optimize the tissues throughout the body. So you become more oxygenated by having higher levels of carbon dioxide in your body, basically. And
Wow.
It gets absorbed through your skin by being inside this suit. That thing is amazing, and that's what I've done that a couple times, along with red light therapy and PEMF to heal myself from my hernia repair surgery recently.
Oh, wow. And that you just felt like just accelerated your healing, huh?
Dude, so before this podcast, I just did my 2-week follow-up with my surgeon just to see how things are going, and he's like,
Love it.
I walked in there, because I guess most people who come in there.
I just imagine Josh Holland walking in. He's probably doing like a one-handed handstand and then on a slack block and just kind of balancing. And the guy's like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing?" Yeah. It's like I imagine most people that are coming in there are, like after 2 weeks from a surgery, from any kind of surgery is
trauma to the body. Yeah.
Trauma to the body, exactly. So like they probably walk in, see the nurses, and say, because their common question is, how are you doing? And I said to the lady at the front, I feel wonderful. And she was looking down, and she looks up, and she was like, I guess we'll take that answer, right? And I'm like, no, but for real, I feel great. I'm fully recovered. I'm not going to be, a moron and go and like start deadlifting heavy right now. But I mean, I'm fully recovered, and I feel wonderful. But I've also been doing BPC 157 injections every day. I've been doing PEMF, red light therapy. I've been doing all this stuff. And this is what is important. I think we can wrap this up in a nice little bow. This little concept anyway, is you don't have to do all of this stuff. But if you have it available and you understand it, you know how to use it, and you have people like us in your network, then why not use it?
Yep.
Why not?
Yep.
Right? So, like, my brother, who has my same DNA, he's a year older than I am, had this same surgery that I had many years ago. And can you imagine the response he sent to me was like, oh man, he was like, be careful, bro, because like, whoo, I was out of it for like several weeks, and I could barely move, and you're gonna be in pain. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks. But he knows me, right? But he doesn't understand. He didn't have that technology that I have. It's like, every single day, that was my job. My job was to recover. So why not?
Yeah, man. Love that. Exciting projects that you're working on, man. You got everything going on. What's next, brother?
So this book, the new revised book, it's going to be self-published with Get Shifted Publishing. Tessa and I had to create that.
That's going to be are you going to start your own publishing company?
Well, we sort of had to. Yeah, we had to kind of suffice getting this book out. And Tessa and I have been kind of considering, like, do we make it like a bona fide thing and work with other people on other projects? And we're like, yeah, we're going to do that. So that's the latest. And then something really exciting, I think it's good to mention it on this show, is for the first time ever, finally, I'm going to be doing retreats.
Very cool.
And
I could totally see you doing that. That's great.
Yeah, because in order for me to kind of fulfill my goal of working with as many people as I can, not only working with celebrities and not only working with one-on-ones, like I want to be able to build a tribe of like-minded people. And we don't even have to be like-minded as in we have to agree, but like-minded in that there's a group of people that want to optimize their situation, right? Yeah. And so one of the first places that I'm going to be doing this is in the Turks and Caicos. And I'm doing this with a former client of mine. Obviously, I keep my relationships with my clients because, it's like just because we're not working together doesn't mean that we couldn't be friendly or do something else together.
When you vibe with certain people, I've had clients turn into friends, and I love that.
Exactly.
It's such a great, I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. So the goal is to do that before Roger's next tour in Europe. So I'm going to be going down to the Turks and Caicos at the beginning of January. I'm going to do sort of like a marketing trip to kind of get videos, photos, get the whole system put together. And then ideally I would do a retreat before March. So maybe around Valentine's Day or something like that. I think it would be cool for a little retreat down in the Turks and Caicos. And then from there, build out a platform of similar retreats. And so obviously the retreat is going to be built around the concepts in the book. So there's 5 pillars. Most retreats are going to be 7 days, 5 to 7 days. So it makes sense that we'll be covering each of those pillars throughout and doing a lot of like hikes and regenerative farming and all sorts of stuff.
I love that, man. That's going to be fun. Really cool stuff. I want to go into some of like what I call my lightning round questions, although I got to change the name because it's not, I don't expect lightning round responses. So, but before I do, anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
No, man, you've been spot on. Great host. I can't think of anything, but I'm sure I will once I get off. But yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And I know I had even some more questions, and I'll probably have to bring you back for a round 2. So don't worry.
All good. I'm happy to.
Beautiful. All right, man. I'm curious. What are just some choices, or maybe just a choice that you made that you think made you who you are today?
I made a choice to truly understand who I am in sort of this physical body. And I feel like at some point, I don't know when exactly, but at some point I realized that you don't always have to accept what the narrative is in the world. Right. And I feel like experience trumps all. And so if I want to live my best life and do the most I can in this world, then I need to experience as much as I can as well. I never vibed with this idea of just stay in your lane and just do this and do that, and you're not qualified to do this and that. I'm like, why not? Right. And so that's kind of my ethos, is like our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. So.
You know what? I just thought of something. You like Nike, just do it. It needs to be Johsh Holland. Why not?
Ooh,
boom. Let's go. Let's go. Hold on. Let me see that shirt. Love it. Do you make those?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Can people go to your website and get those?
You can go on my link tree has my merch. My merch.
Go to Johsh Holland on Instagram and then go to the link tree.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And this is just B, right? You don't see the word just, but because it's just the B on the shirt. And there's a lot of, again, double entendres and all kinds of stuff in there. But the idea with this is we've been told throughout our lives, and we will continue to be told throughout our lives, to do this, to do that, to be this, to be that, to be a better father, to be a better, son, to be a better athlete, to be a better biohacker. And my thought is, and I learned this coming out of a series of psychedelic journeys, I came to this understanding that we should just be. We should just be in the moment, right? And just, it's hard to do that. But when you can learn to do that, when you have the awareness to do that, then just be, just chill. It's like there's so much happening in this world around us. And at the end of the day, I've talked about this on my socials, like the amount of thought, energy, and emotion we put into said situation almost is irrelevant in the scope of the universe. It's irrelevant. So just be.
Yeah, brother. Love that. You're such a force in the wellness world. Health, wellness, mindset, everything. Who's someone that inspires you?
Ooh, good question. There are several. I have to say that as controversial as this might sound to some,
West.
I no way. No.
December 2nd. We're recording this, and so
Right.
I'm saying that because Kanye's been in the news a lot lately, I guess.
I would say Joe Rogan. And I've had the great fortune of being able to meet him. And when Roger Waters did his interview, actually it was me who convinced Roger to even do Joe's podcast, and that was a pretty big deal. I got a chance to meet him at his studio in Austin when we were there on tour, and I got a chance to kind of see behind the scenes on what's happening there. And then I've listened to his podcast for a long time, and he's one of the reasons why him and Dave Asprey are two of the reasons why I started my own podcast. And I realized the influence that you can have on people. And some people will look at that as a negative influence. Some people will look at that as a positive influence. And I just say, it's what you take from it, you know?
Yeah.
It's what you take from it. So, yeah. I think those are a few in there. I also dig Andrew Huberman. I dig Ben Greenfield. I dig. I look up to a lot of my clients. I look up to Roger a lot. I'm good friends with Oscar Isaac. He's a great influence on me. I am on him as well. And also as crazy as it might sound, I look up to Madonna, who's another client of mine that I still work with, and I've seen her grow and evolve from being this mega pop star for most of her life into being a great mother to multiple kids to, having to navigate the waters of how to age gracefully or lack thereof in today's world, right? And it's just like, if we can judge that or we can be compassionate and go, wow, what would I do in this situation, And it's easy to judge, but it's harder to be compassionate. And so I would challenge people to be more compassionate about people like Kanye and people like Madonna, people like, all these people, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Love it. Any, as you know, the books behind me, I'm a big reader. Any books for you that just stand out, that had a huge impact on your life that you'd say someone else should probably go out and read these too? Yes,
there's a few. I would say the Netflix Rules of No Rules is a great book. I would say Healing is Voltage.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking behind me because I have my books here as well. This book called The Awareness Shift.
Yeah, something about the awareness shift. I heard that's a good book.
Yeah. I would also say The Practice of Natural Movement, which is by the founder of MoveNat, which is one of my favorite sources of certifications in fitness, which it's incredible. It stands for Move Naturally, MoveNat. And let me think. Deep Nutrition is a really good book by Dr. Kate Shanahan. I think it's Dr. Kate, right?
Yeah, you're right.
And that's probably Movement. Movement Matters by Katie Bowman. That's a great book. That one, I'm so glad I snuck that one in there, because Movement Matters was a book that caused me to go, we're looking far too wide or outside of our situation when we can transform our home into a more of a functional sitting place. Like, instead of going out and getting like the perfect sofa or chair, like how about you turn a crate into a lower seating chair? Or, how about you recycle things in ways that, create movement? Like, she was one of the reasons why I brought rocks into my home to be able to practice foot movement and all these things. And she was one of the first to kind of bring up this concept of standing desks and things like that, So,
that.
Yeah, movement matters.
Beautiful, beautiful list. Last couple of questions, we'll wrap it up. Any rituals or hacks or just practices that you do on a regular basis?
Breath work, meditation, movement, right? Not exercise, but movement. I have this thing that you could probably find you can find on YouTube called MAP, Movement Analysis Pattern. It's one of the things I give all of my clients, and anybody who's ever worked with me knows what it is, even if they forgot about it. And then I also, like, a big thing that I focus on is doing things with your offhand. doing things that challenge you. So if you're a fighter, I would say learn to fight on both sides. If you are an athlete, learn to play on both sides. Again, this is not to make you a better athlete necessarily, but just to make you a better human being, right? Because it's like you're not designed to be just a football player and just throw with your right arm. You were designed to do a whole bunch of things, right? And at some point you're going to stop doing that, right? So are you then going to focus the rest of your life trying to like enhance the movement on your other side, right? Like I even playing ping pong or table tennis, I'll play with pros and tell them to play me with their offhand, Like this is the kind of stuff I like to do.
Yeah, love that, dude. Last but not least, where can people find you, Johsh Holland, and connect with you and just learn more about you?
Yeah, so you can find me pretty much on all platforms by just putting in Joshua J. Holland. And try not to forget the J in between the Joshua and the Holland, because that is my middle initial. My middle name is J-A-Y, but it's just the letter J in between Joshua and Holland. And you can find that on all of the platforms.
Beautiful. Love you, brother. Thank you for being on the show and just being here. What a blessing. And look forward to future conversations.
Thank you for your time, brother. I appreciate it.